Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Pathways of Light Miracle Network Wednesday meditation group. And I'm so glad you're all here. Meditation gathers strength and energy when we all meditate together. This week, Robert Perry will lead us in the meditation, and then we'll have 20 minutes of silence. And after that, we'll open it up for sharing, and we'll end at 10:45. And you're all on mute, so that's great. Over to you, Robert.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be back here. Doesn't seem like it's been as long as it's been. As many of you perhaps know, I'm a big believer in the importance of meditation in the Course itself. It's a major theme in the workbook. And what I'd like to do today is have us all do together the very first meditation that Jesus communicated through Helen. I want to show you it on the page of her notebook, and then I'll show you a transcription of it. But the setting is that this is the day before A Course in Miracles started to come through. So we're in October of 1965. This is October 20th. The Course will begin coming through on October 21st of 65. So the day before, what happens is Helen has begun to hear the voice of Jesus in her mind. She started to write some things down. And she has a question because she's begun to hear, she wants to know how the same thing can happen for Bill. And you have the impression Bill is wondering, he's not hearing like Helen is. How can he begin to hear? And she then asks that question on the pages of her notebook. And she gets a lengthy answer. It's really a whole discourse from Jesus. And by this point, even before the course has begun to come through, she is considering this to be from Jesus. She calls the voice Christ. um, and in response to her question, he gives her a series of points about how Bill can better hear guidance. And one of the points is that Bill needs to learn better concentration. He needs to have a more focused and more quiet mind when he listens for guidance. And then to give Bill that more focused, quiet mind, he then essentially communicates a short meditation instruction. So let me go ahead. Can I share my screen, Dan? Yeah? Okay. Looks like I can. Okay. So I'll show it to you first on Helen's notebook page. It's not the highest quality copy, but we can still make it out here. And there's a few shorthand symbols like that is he, but I know all the shorthand symbols that she uses. So I'll just go ahead and read it to you. This is point number 3 for how Bill can hear guidance better. And it says he has to learn better concentration. His mind flits about too much for good communication, meaning communication from Jesus. So rather than being concentrated, focused, his mind is flitting about. Suggest, and he's telling Helen, suggest a very short phrase like, "Here I am, Lord." And now, rather than addressing Helen and telling her to say certain things to Bill, he's speaking directly to Bill. And don't think of anything else. Just pull in your mind slowly from everywhere else and center it on these originally 4, which is crossed out, words, because it is 4 words. This will also give him the realization that he really is here. He's not too sure. So that's how it appears on her notebook pages. Let me go ahead and share a transcription of it. So, point number 3, he has to learn better concentration. His mind flits about too much for good communication. Suggest a very short phrase like, "Here I am, Lord," and don't think of anything else. Just pull in your mind slowly from everywhere else and center it on these 4 words. This will also give him the realization that he really is here. He's not too sure. So this is clearly a meditation instruction. He's talking about, taking a short phrase, clearly repeating it over and over, and having your mind on that to the exclusion of everything else, so that your mind is not flitting about, is completely concentrated, it's focused. It's a meditation instruction. And this was given to Bill the day before A Course in Miracles started. So meditation was part of the picture from the very beginning. I want to just talk about this method a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and do it. Okay. And what I've done here is simply break down exactly, what's there in the passage itself. Repeat the short phrase, "Here I am, Lord." Now, I want to say a bit about that. He clarifies later, this gets mentioned a few times into chapter 3 of the text. So it has a continuing presence to a degree. And he clarifies that it doesn't mean I'm here in this world. Okay, it doesn't mean here I am in this chair. When you say to someone, "Here I am," what do you mean? You mean you're present to them. It's like you might show up in their office and say, "Here I am." So you're saying, "I'm present to you, God." And you don't have to use the word Lord. The Course is not big on that word. It's just that this is a line actually from the Bible. So it's a biblical quote. You can say, "Here I am, God." You can say, "Here I am, Father." You can say, "Here I am, Creator." But the point is, you're speaking to God and saying to him, you're present to him. Okay. And what you'll find, I think, is that when you say this, it has a strong psychological effect. Saying to God, "Here I am, I'm present to you, I'm with you, I'm right here in front of you," has a strong effect. And the whole thing centers on that effect. So you repeat that. I think clearly you repeat it over and over to the exclusion of everything else. And that's the key. Don't just be repeating this while your mind also roams around on other things. He says, don't think of anything else. Pull in your mind slowly from everywhere else. Obviously, that means all those things your mind is flitting about amongst. It's almost like you're a hummingbird going from flower to flower. Pull your mind in from all those things out there in the world that your mind wants to go and attend to, okay, and center it on these words. Your mind is completely centered, completely absorbed in these 4 words. It's a very simple technique. He doesn't talk about wandering thoughts, but obviously if your mind starts to flit about, that you just pull it back and center it on those words. But it's ultimately just a matter of repeating, "Here I am, Lord," meaning I'm present to you. I'm here. I'm right in front of you, so to speak. And then not thinking of anything else. Having your mind removed, pulled in from everything else. So that combination is it. It's very simple, but I find that it's very effective. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, maybe I'll leave that on the screen. Okay, we don't need to see each other particularly right now. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so I'll give us a brief induction and then I'll leave you on your own. And when the time's up, I'll say amen and we can have our discussion time. So if you will, go ahead and get comfortable. Close your eyes. You might want to take a deep breath to get yourself relaxed. Begin by saying directly to God, expecting He can hear you. Begin by saying, "Here I am, Lord." Say it again. "Here I am, Lord," meaning I'm here with you. I'm present to you. This is not just a line to repeat, it's a genuine communication from you to God. Here I am, Lord. And while repeating it, don't think of anything else. Again, here I am, Lord. You're making yourself totally present to God and not present to anything else. Have a sense of consciously pulling your mind slowly away from the world, pulling it in and centering it entirely on these words. Here I am, Lord. You have been absent to God, and now it's time to be completely present to Him. Continue to repeat the phrase, being totally present to God, being totally present to those words, and present to nothing else. And when other thoughts do intrude, as they will, don't be disturbed. Just repeat the phrase again, bringing all of your awareness to it. And I'll leave you on your own now and say Amen at the end. All right. Amen. You can open your eyes when you're ready. Come back to the room.
Okay, we have 15 minutes for sharing. Please, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please use the reactions button at the bottom of the screen. There's a hand. Just click on the hand, and then I will unmute you. Terry, let me go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Dan. Morning, Robert.
Good morning.
All
Good to see you.
right. Yeah, good to see you. It's interesting, isn't it? The encouragement to say, "Here I am," because as you know, the mantra that I use within my own meditation community, which is a contemplative order, is the other side of that coin. Come, Lord. Come, Lord Jesus. Maranatha, the Aramaic. And it's said to be the first Christian prayer. And it was used as a password, in the very early days when the early Christians were hiding in the catacombs and stuff. People would knock on the door and use the word Maranatha. And my favorite hymn is Here I Am, Lord. It's a beautiful hymn. If you don't know it, it's a lovely hymn. John Michael Talbot is the guy who wrote it. Here I am, Lord. I have heard you calling in the night. It's a beautiful hymn if you want to check it out.
I think I do know. I used to be a big fan of John Michael Talbot's. I saw him perform live. I had his music for years.
Yeah. So I, for one, love this morning, Robert. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. And along those lines, a number of the prayers in part 2, at least a few of the prayers in part 2 of the workbook, and one of the lessons in part 1 have this phrase we say to God, which is, I come to you. And that phrase, I come to you, has very much the same spirit as here I am. In both, you're sort of making yourself present to God. So that's kind of more the flip side of come Lord.
Thank you. I have a question here. How do you keep your mind focused if your ego keeps throwing up fear thoughts?
Well, I would suggest reading lesson 44 in the workbook. It very directly addresses dealing with fear thoughts in meditation. And it kind of has it asks you to, use the line to draw your mind back, I believe. But it says that if they become too much, open your eyes briefly. And then when you feel like it's subsided, close your eyes and return to the meditation. It does happen. That lesson says that the ego is afraid of going where you want to go in meditation. But it gives you a method in that lesson for dealing with the fear thoughts without having them just completely, end your meditation.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a? Okay, Catherine, I'll unmute you. Okay, or you unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi, Robert.
Hi.
Lovely to be present with you for the first time. Your pamphlets were some of my first encounter with A Course in Miracles, so thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. That must have been a long time ago.
It was 1993 or 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder how Bill got along with this, because I know my mind can still manage to wander with it. And I also am curious, I'm not aware of those words being in the course itself, and it seems interesting that he gave it as such a remedy, and I can feel the power of it. And like Terry, I love the hymn, and the line is very meaningful to me. So yeah, I'm just curious that it's not in, my understanding is you're saying it's in the notes but not in the course itself.
Well, it's in the notes, and given that those notes were from the day before the course started, it logically wouldn't be in the course. However, with the edition of the course that we put out a few years ago, the complete and annotated edition, I don't know if you're aware of that. I couldn't not have it in the course. So we later on in chapter 3, when he does comment on it, although those comments were edited out of the familiar FIP edition of the course, we left the comments in and took that as an excuse to put the instructions in there. So we do have those instructions in the complete and annotated edition.
And how did Bill get along with it?
You know, I have no idea. I don't know, but he does see it. If you follow the later comments about it, he sees it as this great antidote to Bill's way of being. He talks about Bill's way of being a lot in terms of a psychological term called distantiation, where you're kind of distancing yourself mentally from everything. So you're always mentally distancing, always pulling back, always detaching, withdrawing. And this, the idea behind this technique was, by making yourself totally present to God, Bill would be reversing that kind of chronically unhealthy stance of his. But yeah, I don't know of any record of how it went for Bill.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good to hear from you.
Anyone else have a question or comment? Rich.
Oh, hi, Robert.
Hi.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was lovely. I don't have clear thoughts.
Rich, we can't hear you. Could you put your volume up?
Can you hear me now?
Vaguely. Can you do a little bit more?
Oh, let's try turning this off.
Can't hear anything. Are you there?
It was kind of audible before. Whatever you were doing at the first, maybe you should just do that again. We'll probably be able to make it out.
Or maybe if Rich can hear us, he could type the question to you in chat, Dan.
Yeah, would that be okay, Rich? Yeah, I have a question here from Jane and David.
That's it. Okay, yeah, it's a bit of an effort to unmute on this device. It's more, it wasn't really a question, just a thought, because I've felt, as I often do with meditation, that I was struggling to bring myself away from wandering thoughts. But then I realized that actually, well, I'm not doing too bad, because I keep bringing myself back. And I remembered something that that Eckhart Tolle says, that there's words to the effect that there's no right or wrong way. You just do what you do with meditation. That was the theme of what Eckhart says, and so I then actually pictured him up there in a sort of ethereal state, which was quite nice. And then I decided that if I was in my right mind, I would shift it from the left to the right, which is not non-political. And so there he was up there.
Glad you clarified that.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. And so that's really I feel I'm moving in the right direction. Thank you so much, Robert. I got so much from you the last time, and I was thrilled when I saw you today. Thank you.
Oh, well, yeah, great to have you here. I will say that in the course, I hate to say it, there actually is a right and a wrong way. Not in terms of, if you do it the wrong way, you're guilty. But the course is very strong on drawing your mind back from wandering. It expects your mind's going to wander. But rather than kind of letting it go, and it sounds like you were drawing it back, David, but he really wants you to just constantly bring it back to focus. There's a great discussion of this in lesson 74, which I've got in front of me here. He says, let's see, if you feel yourself merely slipping off into withdrawal, which I think he's describing as a state where you're kind of just, you're floating, it's a bit drowsy, a bit sleepy, quickly repeat the idea for today and try again. And here's the key line, or a couple lines. Do this as often as necessary. There is definite gain in refusing to allow retreat into withdrawal, even if you do not experience the peace you seek. So he's saying, if you don't find any peace, but you don't let yourself just float off, there's a definite gain in that. So the course really is focusing on this very disciplined approach of not letting your mind just wander off.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I think really sort of what I'm actually trying to say is that I don't want to beat myself up in it, because it's my ego. Often I was very conscious that my ego is trying to pull me into the clouds, basically, keep me in the clouds. And and then that's when I start beating myself up. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification.
Practice.
That is, go ahead.
No, well, no, progress rather than perfection, I think, is something I always remember from 12 Steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important point, because, and the course does talk about not being disturbed by, various kinds of lapses in our practice. I find that I need in my meditations to really prepare myself for being as focused as I can, pulling my mind back as often as I need to. And the more you focus on that, the more there's a tendency to beat yourself up, thinking, oh my God, I can't believe what a loser mind I have. And so you're right. It's so important to not indulge that, but to just say, no big deal. I'll pull it back. Yeah.
Rich, would like to have another go at seeing if we can hear you.
I'll have another go. Is that working?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. What I wanted to ask, I don't have fear thoughts, but I kind of have fear feelings. It's almost like I get aches and pain, different things that I don't normally have at different parts. It's almost like the ego starts to use my body instead of my thinking to jolt me. Have you got any ideas for that? Or are we really talking about the same thing? It's kind of about sitting with that and being with that and not withdrawing from that. Is it all the same kind of source, so to speak?
Well, the course doesn't address physical, sensations and distractions and aches and pains during meditation, except that there's no overt or explicit body focus in the course's meditations. What you want to do is focus on for instance, here it's the phrase, "Here I am, Lord," to the exclusion of all else. And to facilitate that, I would just say, get as comfortable as you can, whatever it takes. I meditate in a recliner chair. I kick back, and just make sure that nothing physical is drawing my attention. I talked to somebody once who had a lot of injuries from, I guess, athletic training, and they just were dealing with chronic pain. I don't know what you do in that situation, but if your body is just sort of not dealing with chronic pain, I would just say get as comfortable as you can so that it's not distracting you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more comments? We've just about come to the end. Oh, hold on, there's a chat here. Let's get the chat. Thank you so much, Robert. Wonderful, deep appreciation to the team, and that's it. Wasn't really a question or comment, but that's it. So yeah, over to you, Robert.
Are we closing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be with all of you. I really enjoy this technique, and I really enjoy being able to share it. I mean, I don't know if you enjoyed seeing the notes, but for me, I love seeing those notes because that's where it happened. And seeing that he was teaching meditation from the very, very start, even before there was any such thing as A Course in Miracles. So to me, that's just a reminder of how important this is. And what I'm reminded of today is that the very line that he teaches us here I am, Lord, it encapsulates the sense of being fully present to God that the whole technique is about, right? We're pulling our mind in from everywhere else. We're centering it on these words. We're being totally present to these words which are telling us to be totally present to God. And so it just underscores the fact that meditation is about that act of being completely mentally present to the object of meditation. Anyway, so I hope this has been helpful for you, and it's been great to be with you, and hope to see you all again at some point.
Thank you, Robert. That was a wonderful meditation. And everybody, please take yourself off mute and thank Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
Lovely.
Brilliant.
Robert,
Thank you.
Robert, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bless you all. Take care, everyone. Thank you.